Hey folks, Dave the Not So Evil Viking 13 here with some gameplay and a first look at the upcoming Battlefield 1 in the name of the TSAR DLC. As you guys are probably aware, this will be the DLC that brings the war to the Eastern Front, with Russian and Austro-Hungarian forces clashing in the wild mountains of that region. This next theme DLC won't be out until September. However, DICE has actually increased the scale of the DLCs, and to make up for how much time they're taking to produce, they are releasing small chunks of them ahead of time. They've also gone back and added additional maps to the They Shall Not Pass French DLC. That'll bring the total new maps for each of these theme DLCs, the French and the Russian TSAR DLC, up to 6 maps apiece, along with the usual additional weapons and vehicles to go along with them. Although again, this next upcoming in the name of the TSAR DLC has a slightly higher number of new weapons and vehicles than usual. We don't have exact details yet, but a number of these weapons are playable here, as you can see in the Battlefield 1 community test environment. On the CTE, you can help DICE balance new weapons, terrains, vehicles, and the like. It's also a way for them to try out patch elements, like trying to cut down on the AD left-right spam in a dev environment with actual players playing it. So far on the CTE, we've been able to play 2 of the Russian maps from the upcoming TSAR DLC. The first one was Lupkow Pass in Conquest mode. This is a very mountainous terrain, with lots of small passageways and tons of flanking options. There's almost no main routes in this map, unless you're just going from flag to flag. There's almost always going to be a way to flank around. The height differences in this map do make it a sniper's paradise, especially if you're me and you like running with those bolt-action iron sight rifles. But don't worry, there's plenty of rocks, trees, and small craters for you to hide inside of to avoid all that rifle fire. Given the massive change in the environment all the way from the Western Front to the Eastern Front, as you guys can see, this DLC is going to drop the first snow maps for Battlefield 1. DICE has done a fantastic job with the snow environments that we've seen so far for In the Name of the TSAR. There's the usual impeccable level of detail that Battlefield 1 has been dropping in all of its maps so far, with additional awesome little tweaks like leaving your footprints in the snow as you're running around. The snow also makes for some dramatic lighting, and while I think there's still too extreme of an HDR effect looking in and out of buildings, where if you're outside looking into a dark interior, it's like a black hole, you can't see anything inside, I still think that needs some tweaking, but the lighting overall is fantastic. It looks so real. And of course, making interesting lighting in a game can be easy if you just go right to sunset. What's cool about these maps that we've seen so far, Lupkow Pass, as well as most recently Bruzilov Keep, is that the time of day and lighting effects are actually a part of the map themselves. Instead of a sandstorm or a thick thunderstorm that rolls in, sometimes the map just changes time of day from a very realistic looking overcast snow time of day, where it's not snowing yet, but it's just that calm before the storm, that very still, cloudy, cold day that you can just tell it's about to snow. That's actually one of my favorite lighting effects because it's so hard to make look realistic because the lighting is just very flat, and the lack of shadows can make things look boring. But DICE has actually gotten a really nice pre-snow lighting effect going on. It really feels cold and like the calm before the storm. You also do have some lighter snow showers, as well as you might expect, some heavier blizzards that do look fantastic. Occasionally, the skies will clear a bit and the sun will poke through, especially on Bruzilov Keep. Even with a few months of development left to go, the maps that we've seen so far are incredibly polished, and I can't wait to see the final versions. There's already only just a few things to fix, like some floating debris and some glitchy climbing spots and the usual stuff like that. They already play quite well, minus some balance tweaking that needs to be done. Bruzilov Keep is a really interesting linear mountainside map. It doesn't have quite the same peaks and elevation changes that Lupkow Pass has. What it does have is a nice keep, as the name says, on top of a hill just past a beautiful flowing wintertime stream with a couple of railroad and road bridges that cross over it. I can really tell that this is a map that was designed for Rush. As the only mode that I've played on it so far, I'll be really intrigued to see how the Conquest mode looks, because the map is essentially designed in a line across the side of a mountain. Conquest mode is going to be still pretty narrow, I think, but Rush mode is a fantastic fit for this map. Lupkow Pass also features one of the new quote-unquote vehicles for the In the Name of the Tsar DLC, the Russian Hussars, the famous Russian cavalry. And yes, they are armed with their famous lances. You can hold left click here on PC to do a relatively brief charge. You can hold it for a while, but it's very hard to turn as you do it, so you don't want to just hold it as you head across the mountain. But if you catch someone in the right spot during that charge, you actually spear them with your lance and carry them along with you for a couple of good gallops before you shake them off the end of the lance. It's a fantastically brutal kill in a game already full of some very nasty melee fighting that looks brutal enough as it is. The hitbox on that lance charge is really rough right now, and in fact, I mostly get that lock-on lance stab through when I think I've missed it, and then when I think I've connected, the game thinks I missed it and I don't get the animation. It's definitely a bit wonky so far. Along with Brzezlov Keep, DICE has opened up a couple of the new weapons to try out in that rush mode for now. I'm not familiar with most of these, so I've just had some footage going in the background as I've tried out a couple of different options, from a really interesting almost LMG style assault weapon to a full auto medic gun that is definitely going to get nerfed before this DLC comes out because it is so overpowered right now, as well as a relatively vanilla semi-auto medic gun. We've also got one of the most interesting LMGs that I've seen in a while. Wait until you meet this essentially stationary weapon that you are dragging along with you. You're going to want to fire it from a prone position or against some kind of fence or something to support it, and not just running gun with it whatsoever. It is a lot of fun though, and a few times I managed to hold down a nice choke point by getting this bipod up at just the right moment. Tough to control, but already one of my favorite weapons from the DLC. There are also a couple of really interesting new bolt-action rifles. The first one should come as no surprise. It's the Russian Mosin Nagant, their bolt-action battle rifle that served them throughout both World War I and World War II. It is faithfully and accurately recreated here with some really nice bolt animations. However, I found the iron sights to be almost like they were zeroed incorrectly. Going back to my lance comment, some of the shots that I would get and actually get a headshot with this Mosin felt like I was missing and then getting a headshot. And then some headshots that I felt like I had lined up perfectly on the notch of the front post on those iron sights, the game decided that I had missed. It might just be a misalignment between the model and the cursor, but something felt a little bit off there. What doesn't feel off is the punch that the Mosin delivers. In most cases, you're going to do 75 plus damage with those iron sights at just about any decent mid-range. It only holds 5 rounds in the internal magazine, but reloading is relatively quick. All that being said, the weird iron sights could also be a problem with hit registration on this current version of CTE because they were getting a couple of glitches and crashes with it, and I was playing occasionally on some higher ping servers. So it could just be some in-development wonk and not the iron sights and weapon models themselves.
Ich sehe einen Sanitäter.
The second bolt-action rifle that comes along in the Name of the Tsar DLC I don't recognize at all, but it's actually quite a bit of fun. It only holds 4 rounds on the internal magazine, but it packs a massive punch. Unfortunately, by default, it has probably the worst rifle iron sights in the entire game. The first time that I looked down these things, I couldn't tell which part of the front post I was supposed to be looking at. And as you move around in the dark and in the shadows of the trees and the forest, you can very quickly lose your sight picture. For this rifle, I definitely moved over to the radium sights and enjoyed those a lot more. Also up to try on the CTE are about 6 or 7 new melee weapons. They range from some new knives to a Russian axe. Surprise, surprise, that one definitely my favorite. There's also the famous Nagant revolver, invented, as the name suggests, by the co-inventor of the Mosin Nagant battle rifle. I'm going to predict right now that this will most likely be one of the most popular revolvers in the entire game, because while still packing a nice punch with a good rate of fire, it holds 7 rounds. Alright guys, that's going to wrap things up for my first impressions of the In the Name of the Tsar DLC. And yes, while DICE has been slow with the post-release content, one could say, I am quite satisfied with how they're working to improve things with the monthly patches, going back and adding additional maps to They Shall Not Pass, which was completely unexpected, and bringing the community in with the CTE program to get involved in the development of the game. I still want to see some improvements, and it's basically the same stuff that you guys have probably already heard if you're a fan of the game. I want to see the grenade spam toned down even more, although good first steps have been taken. I want to see that left right AD spam gone, because I've started doing it now too just to try and keep up, and it's really distracting and not as much fun to fight someone who's just constantly sidestepping. Does not fit the game very well at all. And there are a few other quality of life improvements that I'd like to see. Again, mostly the same of what you guys are going to see over on the Battlefield 1 CTE program subreddit, which you guys can find at reddit.com, I think r/battlefield_live. Or if you just search for Reddit Battlefield Live, you'll find that subreddit where you guys can actually take a survey about the upcoming content, and also let DICE know what you think about the changes that are being done to the CTE and get involved in the game's development process. For now though, I am excited about the future of Battlefield 1, I'm having a blast with the new content, and hope you guys enjoyed this first look. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.